Hi. So my name is Justin Ashwell, and today I'm going to be going over my SEL Toolbox. So I teach high school biology and forensic science. My biology classes are predominantly made up of ninth and 10th graders, and my forensic science classes are made up of 11th and 12th graders. Today, I really wanted to focus on the type of tools I think that teachers need given the circumstances, or the unique circumstances that we're in currently, which is distance learning due to COVID-19. So, my first five that I'm going to be covering today deal with different things that we can be using distance wise to help our students through this emotional time. So, strategy number one involves wellness checks. And to do this, I usually start my day off with some sort of Google form. Okay, and this Google form is basically there to just check and see how my students are doing. I like to use emojis. This can help students feel a little bit more at ease and encourage them to express how they feel. And this shows students that you truly care about their emotions right now and how they might be feeling, even though they're not in front of you in a classroom setting. It shows that you still care about them from a distance. My second strategy that I've been using a lot in both my biology and my forensics class is Flipgrid. So Flipgrid gives students a platform to communicate with one another about school projects and various topics. Like the slogan on their website claims, Flipgrid empowers every voice. It gives students an opportunity to share a video about either a homework assignment that they're doing, content of the class, or just a question that I might pose to kind of just get to know my students. This allows students to build a community. Okay, much like social media of today, Flipgrid is a teacher's version of edible social media. Strategy number three, Nearpod. So Nearpod boosts student participation with collaboration activities, informative assessments like virtual reality, polls, collaborative boards, and game-based quizzes. This gets student insights in real time and in post-session reports. The feature that I like to use predominantly on Nearpod is polls. So you can use polls, this poll feature, to check in on your students with questions like, how are you feeling today? How comfortable are you feeling about the content that I just went over? Are you struggling in my class or maybe in another teacher's class? But I kind of like to use Nearpod as an exit ticket to make sure that my students understand the content, right? Or just to see how they're feeling. If they're stressed, if they're having trouble managing that stress, what I can do as a teacher to help them get over whatever it is that they need help getting over, or just even to listen to sometimes what they need to say. If these polls show me that they're having difficulty with something, I can reflect on my own teaching and I can go back and reteach a subject. So Nearpod has a lot of different ways that it can be used, and I find myself using this quite a bit with distance learning. Strategy number four is Zoom. So, a lot of people think of Zoom as just something that they use to teach an entire class, right, over video. But it actually has so many other amazing things that can be applications that can be used. So, a lot of times I like to offer a lot of my students that are struggling, especially my English language learners, an opportunity to do one on one private Zoom tutoring, right? Or a lot of times I'll have my chat box on private. So if students don't feel comfortable asking questions in front of the entire class, they can ask me privately, and then I can just answer it over my Zoom lectures, right? So this helps students have a voice who might be afraid to have a voice in front of all the other students. Okay. Strategy number five, Google Class. Okay, well, I love Google Class. Again, this is another application that teachers use predominantly just to teach and post assignments, but it has so many other cool applications. So, more specifically, the chat feature is what I use in Google Classroom. So, this allows students to build a dialogue about homework, assignments, and classroom topics. This encourages interaction amongst the students and it builds a community. I also like to use the private chat. So, this allows you or me as a teacher to privately respond to students' questions and concerns regarding content or personal lives. And this, again, gives students an immediate and discreet way to communicate with their teacher. So, through 6 through 10, these are different techniques, or what I would like to think of as SEL techniques that I would use in a classroom that I have actually tried to implement in the past. So, strategy number 6, or mindfulness, not just a form of meditation, right? So, when people hear mindfulness, they think, oh, you meditate. But of course, that's not all that's involved. Mindfulness can come in many different forms, such as listening to difficult conversations, right? Journaling, reading, taking a moment of silence, or even breathing. These are all things that have been shown to help center oneself and help understand emotions. So, mindfulness has been proven to have several benefits to students. This includes stress reduction, boost working memory, improves focus, less emotional reactivity, right? Our behavior management of oneself. And of course, relationship satisfaction, and that can include with peers or the teacher itself. So, strategy number 7, restorative practices. So, by now, you know I'm a huge fan of this. This typically has students think about the consequences of their actions. So, a lot of times we will ask a student certain questions like, what were you thinking at the time? What have you thought about since? Who has been affected by what you have done? And what do you think needs to happen to make things right? So these are all questions that we typically ask students who have either thought about doing something harmful to themselves or to someone else, or has done something harmful to themselves or someone else. And the reason I like these questions is because it asks students to not only be aware of their own emotions, but the emotions of their peers as well. Strategy number 8, a peace place. So, a place where students can go to unwind from a stressful situation or a terrible day in general. And I remember myself, growing up through high school, we always had this one teacher that we went to that had this cool hangout spot. For me, it was my English teacher. And his spot included, a little couch, a little rug rather than the hard, cold, dirty tiles that most classrooms have. It had a bunch of cool magazines about games. It had, an Xbox, I think, was there. Sometimes we would play funny movies, but this was just the cool spot to go hang out and unwind. And typically, you want to include in this place some comfy pillows, some noise canceling headphones, some material for journaling, drawing, coloring, maybe even some books or magazines, and a class pet. It's amazing. Studies have shown what cuddling with a pet can do to one's emotions. So students sometimes have a difficult time dealing with their emotions in constructive ways, and this space gives them the opportunity to reflect on what they are feeling without the distractions of the outside world. So, strategy number 9, work in partnerships. And with this, I'm actually incredibly lucky because as a biology teacher, I'm always assigning some sort of cooperative learning assignment or some sort of lab that works as backing up some of the content that I've already taught, in a lecture. And having students work with a partner or a group oftentimes teaches them to cooperate and build a community. If the class has been doing well behaviorally, sometimes I'll allow the students to even pick their own group or partner. But a lot of times I take this opportunity to partner them up with students that they might have not necessarily had an opportunity to meet. And a lot of times I see new friendships formed because of this. And then finally, strategy number 10 is I like to give a lot of games, right, or activities that they get to work on with one another. So before a quiz or exam, I like to play review games with my students, and this promotes social and relationship skills. And some of these games would include Kahoot, quizzes, Jeopardy, and Grudge Ball. Grudge Ball is a particular game that I love playing with my students. You get to see their competitiveness come out when you play this, and it's a fairly simple game. I split the class up into groups, and I ask a series of questions. If the group gets the question right, they get to come up and they have a little Nerf basketball that they have to shoot into a Nerf net. And if they make that point, they're allowed to take off 4 strikes from another group's points. So it ends up being which group gets eliminated first, gets their strikes off, right? But what's great is you start to see teams collaborate, right? And they start to say, well, let's take out team number 3 or let's take out team number 2. And it becomes incredibly competitive where we actually have a lot of kids yelling at each other from across the room, but it's all playful banter. And it's fun to watch them get so excited about, being able to relay the content in some sort of competitive way. And it's fun as a teacher to see. So that will do it for my presentation on tools that you can use for social emotional learning. Here are some of the resources that I found. If you'd like, what I've done is on every picture on every slide, you can actually click on those things and it will take you to sites that I've used to find the information, or if you want to get a little more information about some of the technological things that I use for distance learning, like Zoom and Google Classroom, you can actually click on those pictures and they will take you to those links that either give a video description of that particular type of app that I use, or maybe even some ideas on how to use it using during distance learning. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Thank you very much. Have a lovely week.